And we're back again with the Beyond the Box podcast. I owe everyone an apology. I have been too hot. I have had absolutely just no energy to get on. So we quickly rolled out a few episodes and then there has been a little bit of a break, and that's all on me. This man was still ready and raring to go, keeping the show on the road. But unfortunately, I had let the team down last week. But much cooler today, much more like it. Um, Rich, how was your last week, and how's been your start to this week?
Mate, it's been good. I will agree with you. The weather was brutal. Like I said, I'm a lot more comfy this evening. You've never seen a polar bear in the desert, and there's a reason why. I don't manage that well. But no, it's been really good. This week's been interesting. I think overall the week's been really slower than the previous three that we've discussed. I think it's probably been the slowest week that we've had so far. I think it's a very simple thing. I think it's that rather than being in our houses on our phones, all of us buying, selling cards in groups and in breaks and everything like that, I think we've been in the beer garden. We've been in the pool with the kids. We've just been enjoying the weather that we very rarely get in this country. And I think that's basically had a massive factor to play in the fact that this week's been quite a quiet week, I think, within the hobby in general, not just with us on Collectible Corner, but everywhere else that I've seen, the amount of posts in the buying and selling groups, the amount of new listings on eBay and stuff like that. So I think it's just been a slow week for the hobby, and I genuinely think it's weather associated. But yeah, no, it's been an interesting week. We've had new products drop and stuff like that, so there's been that level of pickup and enthusiasm. But I think generically, it's been a little bit different to the last couple, where it's been like doing a bit of this, kind of just teetered off a little bit this week.
Yeah, no, very fair. I haven't done too much. I've taken a bit of a step back. Haven't been streaming for the last week or so. Just wanted to assess where everything was really. Sometimes I think it's good to take a step back and just evaluate where everything is. But I did creep out the blue, didn't know it was happening. Saw the day before on the Friday that there was a Pokemon card show at the leisure centre, which is about 5 minutes from my house. And the other half was off to get her hair done and do all those wonderful things. So I had the boy and we had no plans because there's no football. Absolutely ridiculous. The sooner football comes back, the better. So yeah, we needed to make a plan. We booked into the Pokemon card show. Didn't really know what to expect, mate. It was absolutely ramo, scorching hot. People were dealing with the heat, sweat dripping down their heads. This place was not geared up for this type of show. Apparently, they rocked up in the morning, and the hall that it was hosted in hadn't had the windows open. So it was like the ceiling, all of the sort of windows are like glass. It's like greenhouse effect. And the sun's been beating down on it for days. This thing's just got so sweltering hot, and the vendors turned up in the morning and all basically said, "Look, I don't think it's possible to do this show. We might have to close the doors before we've even opened them." So yeah, but apparently they opened the windows. It was like a suction of air just being lifted up through the top of the up through the ceiling, and mate, it was uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie, but fortunately, the only tickets that were left were basically afternoon access. So family tickets, but you weren't allowed to enter until 2 p.m. So by the time we'd got in, I think things had aired out a little bit, but still quite uncomfortable. But everyone, mate, dealing with it, and so much business being done. Just a buzzing atmosphere. So many people in the room. So many people trading, spending. No sports whatsoever. Which is quite unusual. It's we're not really Pokemon people, but it was just interesting to see what it was all about. And when it's on your doorstep, it's a no brainer. So yeah, that was us. Current state of the hobby. I don't have too much to say this week on that, to be honest, because I haven't been too involved. Like I say, I've been sort of watching I've going in streams, having a little look around. If Pokemon's anything to go by, there is no shortage of interest in this hobby because it was banged out. How's things been from your side? What have you seen? Is there anything to report?
Not really, mate. Like I think I kind of covered off the current state in my intro, really, didn't I? It was very much a it was a bit of a slower week than it felt. But I'll say I think I've automatically made the connection. I think it was just people. Don't get me wrong. A lot of the times we're sat there, we're in bed, we're ending in a break, so we've got nothing better to do. No one was sat there in bed,
Mm.
comfortable and chillaxing this week. Do you know what I mean? We all had three fans on with a bucket of iced water in front of them, all the windows open. Like, don't touch me. It's been horrible. So I don't think anyone was definitely comfortable and things like that this week. But yeah, it's been good. Like, as always, it's been fun. The new products that came to market were really, really cool. I think we're going to touch on them a little bit further in the episode, so I won't say too much just now. But yeah, no, mate, I don't think it's been a massive amount of change. I think it's just been very steady, but the traffic everywhere, like I said, on all the groups, all the socials, and everything like that, has just been a little bit lighter. So
Yeah, no, I think very, very good summary of where things are. First point I want to touch on this evening, because I've taken a step back, gone into streams on all platforms actually, not just like whatnot, TikTok, really been sort of, floating around and just entering into rooms and just sitting back and just taking it all in, seeing what people are doing, how people are doing things. And I like to do that at times. It gives you a good idea of what's going on and the types of, yeah, just different feels of different streams, whether they're, I mean, I come across some people that were so energetic and were just like too much and I couldn't deal with it. There were some people who were probably too much the other way. But again, what I found was that it was what suited at that time. So I'd go into a whatnot stream or a TikTok stream, and like you say, I was hot, I was bothered. There were streamers who were nice and relaxed, nice and chilled, and that was perfect for me at that time. There were other times where you needed a bit of energy, and sometimes that more bouncy kind of personality from a streamer just sort of gave you the bit of energy that you needed, to a bit of enthusiasm for things. So quite interesting. But I have, and we'd been asked this from people who we asked what topics would they like us to talk about. One of them was pet peeves. Well, I've got a new one, and it's only developed and evolved through this week. Why do streamers think it's cool and feel the need? Now, I ain't no snowflake, right? I ain't no snowflake. I don't mind whether you F and blind at the particular times. I've got no issue with it. But there seems to be this thing at the moment where it makes you cool if you swear every other word. It was driving me insane, mate. F this, F that, F in this, F in that. I just, in the end, I just couldn't listen to it. And there's actually one guy on TikTok who's making a living out of effing and blinding every other word. And people were just lapping it up and loving it and finding it against the grain or cool. Mate, it drives me mad. Honestly, I'm all for if you hit a massive card and you reacted to it and you went, or whatever, then you go, yeah, all right, fair enough. There's no drama with that at all. But yeah, just it almost like, I don't know whether it's a lack of personality. So effing and blinding's the way that they feel cool or feel that they're, I don't know. I can't get my head around it, but I've got to be honest. Every single one of them that were like that, I had to skip past. I couldn't. And actually, the thing about it was that the product I was looking at buying at that particular time, those people had it in stock, and I would have bought it. But I sat in for a couple of minutes, listened to this effing and blinding every other word, and I just couldn't bring myself to make a purchase. I thought, you know what, I can't watch that, or I can't watch that person rip product for me. And it almost, right, it snowballs. So you've got the effing and blinding, which I don't mind in the small part, but not continuously. And what it made you feel was a lack of professionalism. And the lack of professionalism then made you feel, well, how are you going to look after my cards? How are you going to handle my cards? How are you going to sleeve my cards? How are you going to protect my cards? How are you going to ship my cards? Will you even ship my cards? So it made you want to start checking the reviews, and then you started to look and think, and then so you started to get questions. So I'm not so sure that being cool and effing and blinding is the way forward, mate. And it's my new pet peeve. But yeah, let me know your thoughts.
No, fair enough, John. I mean, I'd say I know. Hey, I'm no innocent party. I'm partial to an occasional cuss word. It happens every now and again. But I think you're right. I think when it's every sentence, everything, I think yeah, it can be a little bit much. Like I think a lot of the time, I think people tend to do hobbies to chill out and relax. And I think by nature, maybe that kind of thing. I think the reason maybe it gets under your skin is because it's got nothing to do with the concept of chilling out and relaxing. If I'm effing and blinded, I'm usually on the touchline at a football pitch, or things like that. It's usually a high energy, high intensity. Maybe that's the reason. I think I get it 100%. You know, maybe it's a time and a place thing. Um, yeah, I think that makes sense, man. I think that's cool. I mean, I was having to think on a couple of mine, and funnily enough, what something you said was I was in a stream the other week, and it was on Whatnot, and I was watching. It was a auction page on Whatnot. I'm going to tie into two. I've actually got two pet peeves since someone messaged me and said, "Look, next podcast, this is something I'm curious to find out about." And so I started thinking about it. And obviously, I've mentioned it to you, and these are now what we've got from it. And I think one of my big ones was find the auctions on TikTok and whatnot, really good. I think they're great. They're a great way for people to buy. One of the things that I hate is people that lie during an auction. And there'll be a card which the way they set up the auction is you've got 10 seconds and it's like once the hammer goes, the hammer goes. There's no a bid comes in and it extends, a bid comes I can't remember, sudden death is it? I think it's called.
Yeah, sudden death. Yeah.
Um and what I hate is when you get 10 seconds sudden death. They know what they're doing with that. You've got no time to go away, have a look at comps, and see roughly what the card's going for. And myself, that wasn't necessarily buying. It wasn't a big thing for me because I think, oh, what's this going for? And you'd see it's a card going for 20 quid. But because it looks like it's a legend auto, people think, oh, that's a big card. And it's at 35 quid. And you go, so this is going for below comps. This is crazy. I'm giving it away at this point. And I'm like, I know you've bought that card well because you probably buy in mass bulk. So you've paid well under comps. And now it's nearly double comps, and you're telling people that they're getting a robbery. And I think it comes back to what we've spoken about in a previous episode, where it's like, it's just no good for the hobby. Because when that person then decides that actually, oh, I'm going to try and sell this one because I've now found a card that I want to buy for my personal collection, they're going to put it up thinking it's, they got a steal at 35 quid. They're going to put it up at £40. They get laughed at because it's up at double comps. But they were told it was a steal. And the problem is that person that sat the other side of the camera for them is in a position of trust. You're handing over your hard-earned money to this person that's telling, and I don't know, it irks me. It's one of those things. It irks me. It's not transparent, and transparency is something I think is so important in this hobby. I really, really do. And yeah, that's one of the things that irks me a bit. I'm not gonna lie. And the other one, which is a little thing that I've picked up this week as well. I've been buying up loads of cards this week, and one of the things that really irks me is when I'm in whether it's a WhatsApp buy and sell group or a Facebook page or something like that, someone's selling their card and they go for £100 if bought today. So £100 if bought today, and I'm like, what? So it's £80 tomorrow? Like, I don't get that. Like, okay, so if it doesn't sell today, the price is going up again, and then you're gonna insist on holding it high. It just seems like I don't know. That's one of those things that is a peeve because there's not even anything behind it. I just read that and I'm like, what does that even mean? Because if you don't sell a card today, you still want to sell that card, so it's actually £90 tomorrow. I don't know. It just that is a peeve that I shouldn't bug me, but does.
No, I get it, and I've been involved in some deals like that, and there's so many examples of that. There's that one which is perfect. There's the one where it's, oh, are you interested in these? Oh, but I have got someone else who's interested. Well, go and sell it to them then. Like, if you've already got an offer, go and say, I'm not interested in getting involved in bidding wars or this, that, and the other. I know it's all to try and an old style sales tactic to try and create urgency to want to make the payment and get the
Oh,
sale done. And I understand that, but
there's the other one is like, you offer someone the card comps at £100. You say, I'll give you 100 quid for the card. Yeah, but I paid 120. Okay, okay, that's nice.
you
You
bought
know,
bad,
Uh,
not my fault. It's
yeah.
or
And my
the
dad,
market
yeah,
just
and
changes, don't it?
my dad paid 90 grand for his house in 1992. Which point? It's not worth 90 grand anymore, is it? Like, market moves. So it's just, yeah, that's
Yeah.
another one for me actually. Yeah. Oh, I paid more than
There's a
that.
few
Okay.
like I've got to be honest. I mean, I'll give many people the benefit of the doubt. It seems to be a lot of the less experienced people who try and sell in that way in the hobby. And that can just be down to people's naivety, newbies a little bit, and wanting to get the most value for their cards. And I do understand it, but I found it quite interesting with certain people, some of the big buyers in our hobby, who would literally say, if I've got bulk I want to sell to them, have you posted it anywhere else? If you have, I'm not interested in buying it. And I used to find that mad. Why is that a problem? Either you're interested or you're not. But they were literally the big buyers. And if you'd plastered it all over groups and people had seen how much you wanted for it and all that, they just weren't interested in buying. And now you look back on it and you just think, no, I get it now. I get it. And if someone's prepared to do a big bulk deal with you, give them the respect that they're buying every card. If they're doing that, they're not going to pay full comps or pay, you know, massively high. You are going to have to take a little bit of a hit, but the time it saves you on selling individual cards, shipping individual cards, all that stuff that comes with it, you've got to appreciate that that's what is being taken into consideration. So, no, mate, I completely understand it. Moving on, couple of releases since we last spoke. I'm going to touch upon one. I'll let you run. The second one, it might be quite interesting. You might get a typical Frankie reaction to the second one. But the first one we're going to talk about is Sapphire. My quick take on that format, better than Sapphire's been forever. I think it was back to being an enjoyable format. In the past, nowhere near enough hits, nowhere near enough numbered cards, sometimes no guaranteed autos, and all these weird things that went on with Sapphire. Actually, a format that works. So kudos to that for Tops to making that happen. And in general, the product I thought was very good. So I thought that was a real positive that Sapphire was back to how it should be. And I think with the way that we've sort of discussed and spoke prior to this, that actually that's also being taken very well and being reflected by how many people are buying into the product in your streams. So yeah, what's been your
Right.
take on Sapphire?
Absolutely. I think, you know, I think Sapphire for me is to date product of the year. I think it's been fantastic. I think it feels like a premium set, which I think is important. And we've had time where Sapphire's been at the same sort of price point where you get two numbers per box and one auto per case, and you're like, what? You're paying £300 for £400 for a box, and there's a 1 in 16 chance of an autograph. It's crazy. Um, three autos, sorry, three numbered, an autograph, an image variation in every single box. Loads of hits in every box. Beautiful. The print quality I've found to be really good. Sapphire is absolutely riddled with print lines usually. It looks clean this year. The cards I've seen coming out look really, really smart. I think it's helped by a really strong checklist. I think the fact that we've got legends in every single spot is fantastic. You've got teams like AC Milan just being absolutely stacked with their legends. I think it's brilliant seeing things like Bale on a Spurs auto and things like that. And I think all round it's just made it a really enjoyable product. It's been certainly one of my favourite to rip. Every other pack has got a hit in. Every hit that comes out holds a value because, okay, you've got 1 in 3, but Sapphire is probably Topps' most premium product. it's either going to be Sapphire, Museum, or Inception, isn't it? You know, as a as a mass production. I'm like, yeah, I've just really enjoyed it. I think it's been fantastic this year. I'm really glad that it's been taken well, and yeah, I'm loving running the breaks with it because it's fun to rip. I think there's really good value in the boxes, and yeah, all round think it's fantastic.
Nice. So look, people may have been a little bit in the last few episodes that we're not maybe being a bit harsh, but there you go. When something's right, we'll call it for what it is. Now let's get into finest, and I can
Oh,
have a little bit of a rant. Um, I don't know, mate. You've just mentioned one of the products there, Inception. What I would say is it's very clear that Tops is now taking the UK market very seriously because the design is everything that Americans would typically hate and everything that the UK market would typically love. We know that the American markets normally prefer timeless, clean. That's why the big sets have always been your Prisms and your Selects in America. We've always loved Inception, Deco, those types of products, and well, they've gone all out with Finest. I love that Finest used to have a classy added colour to the product. It felt a little bit more interesting than Chrome, but still staying within the boundaries of making it appealing to all and a design that isn't run too far that it becomes, like we say, one of those sets that you can look back on in a couple of years and go, oh, what did they do with that? Um, which is what I sometimes think of Inception. I know people love Inception. I'll get a lot of stick for knocking Inception. I just feel those sets don't stand the test of time. It's what design elements are currently appealing at that particular time, and in a few years, times change, and you can look back on it and think, oh, a little bit garish. I mean, they've really pushed it to the point where I just think it feels like, dare I say it, almost like a match attacks set. It's gone that far, and I've seen some of the parallels. The one thing I will say though, and that I'll give it before I pass over to you to have a much more positive perspective on this and turn the tone right back round. Um, the versus cards look brilliant. The fact it's a dual auto versus there's a bit of thought being put behind it. Let's stick Roy Keane and Patrick Vieira in there because of the battles that they used to have. That's brilliant. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. So the versus dual autos, I think, an unbelievable addition. Um, so yeah, that I will tip my hat and say very very nice. But the design as a whole and how far they've gone with that color add, and it just seems over designed to me, which I'm never a big fan of.
I mean, this is why me and you work. We are yin and yang. Um, I think they look great. Like, I think they look great. And do you know what's even funnier? The one thing I don't like is the verses.
Really, see, there we go, and that's what the hobby is all about.
That's the honestly. I started going at those. I was like, "There's no way." That's the one thing I was going to pick up as the negative I don't like. So I think the cards are fantastic. They're colourful. They're vibrant. We've learnt from previous episodes. Pretty. Um, they are very vibrant. I will give you that. Um, they will they stand the test of time? I don't know. But yeah, they are very rainbowy. They are very bright. There's lots of colours going on. I've always liked the man cards. They're fantastic and they're there to stay. You know, the quad auto booklets look fantastic. I think there's a very, very pretty set and I'm looking forward to ripping it. I find it funny because the one thing I'm not a giant fan of is the versus cards. Because for me, I think what Rangers fan wants a Celtic badge on their shelf? What diehard? Arsenal fan, wants a Man United bag. Every single card has just got a beautiful Arsenal crest on it, and then slap bang in the middle of it, there's a Man United crest. It's probably a really little thing for me, but it goes back to when I was really diehard collecting my rookie Garnachos. In Topps Chrome, there was the Garnacho and Fabio Carvalho dual auto.
I remember.
I hated the fact I had a Liverpool. I sold that one because
Mm,
even though it's a 10 rookie auto of my big PC, I couldn't have it because I didn't want a Liverpool player in
no,
my PC.
don't think the Roy Keane Vieira thing's a bit different. As a Man United fan or an Arsenal fan, you just remember it. It's just a moment in history. It's not necessarily like you say having a Liverpool rookie on a Man United card. I don't think it's quite the same as that, but I fully do understand your point on that.
One of the things is a timeless football thing. I think you don't even have to be a United or an Arsenal fan to want that card.
Mm,
And there's going to be ones like that, if there's going to be an El Clasico, well, we've seen kind of El Clasico ones before with Messi and Ronaldo on them and stuff. We've kind of seen these things. But I don't know. For me, like I've literally got that first world experience of I didn't want that card because, which is maybe why I have that feeling on this. But I think you're absolutely right. But yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty set. Lots of very nice cards, very vibrant. I think the grading companies that make custom labels are going to have a field day with
On
it.
that though, on that, I'll tell you who won't have a field day. People who submit these cards to PSA. They are all border heavy. They are all geometric, so it's very easy for grading companies to see whether it's centered correctly or not.
Yeah.
Even the marks of excellence have got borders. Most of the autographs have got the geometric pattern on them. The Grail cards have got borders. The prize footballers have got borders. The finest skill sets have got borders. The finest symphonies have got borders. Most of the cards have borders, and it is a grading nightmare when you put borders on cards because unless you cut in everything completely exactly, especially with PSA changing that tolerance that they are happy to
It's a great
give,
point.
I think finest is going to be in for a very very tough time.
It's a great observation, actually. Great observation.
So yeah, we will, but we will see. We will see. Um, Club World Cup. I'm not going to touch upon this too much because it just for me has been like a non-event. Um, Bought the Panini sticker album. We bought a few packs. Never run with them again. It's gone straight in a drawer and never going to see the light of day again. I've tried to watch some of the games, and for me, we've touched upon it before, but all of those increased values we saw with Douay and all of these price hikes that would still be standing now because there's this Club World Cup going on that nobody's really taking that seriously. Nobody really wants to get injured in it. They've had very long seasons. They're all tired and they've all been shoved over to America to play in this tournament that has no history in empty stadiums and everything else. The players aren't playing to their best ability. It was the worst thing that could ever have happened to the Douay market was him going and playing in this Club World Cup. It kind of took that spike that he'd seen that everyone was riding. It just went chop and brought that back down to earth so quickly. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It's not been for me. Um, like I say, I haven't enjoyed any, and I should do because I love football. There was no international tournament this year. This should have been the perfect replacement for some extra football, but it's just another one of those modern day football things that it just ain't real football to me. So I don't know. How's it been for you? Have you watched any of it or got involved with any of it?
I haven't watched a single minute. Everything I know from the Club World Cup comes from the chat in stream. And I'll sit there and I'll go, do you know what? Humour me. Did I hear that Chelsea lost today? Like, yeah, they lost to a Brazilian team. I'm like, sweet. And like, yeah, the Brazilian teams are cooking. I'm like, cool. Like, not nice. Like, it's tricky, innit? Like, let's be honest. If we want to break it down properly, it's just a cash grab. I think FIFA are very, very jealous of UEFA because UEFA have three massive club tournaments every single year. The product sells itself. Everyone's going to watch the Champions League regardless. It's a massive money maker. UEFA also have the Euros every 4 years, a massive international tournament. And FIFA just sit there every 4 years. Don't get me wrong, it's the real money maker, the World Cup, but that's all they've got. And I think it's just pure desperation that they've kind of thrown, oh, let's go for, oh, we can do this. Let's run with this. I think the concept is cool. Don't get me wrong. I think the concept is cool. I think it's shown up some awesome results. I think a lot of people are gaining respect for the Brazilian league because they've had some unbelievable results.
But let's be
But then
honest,
people point,
it means something to them. Like to the Brazilians, this is the
1,000%.
biggest thing that they want to prove themselves. They're playing Real Madrid. They want to give everything to beat them. To Real Madrid, do they care?
No, because they've played 60 games this year. They're desperate to go on holiday. Their pre-season starts in 4 weeks, and if they reach the final's on the 13th of July. They'll have about 5 days off before pre-season's in full swing.
Yeah.
It's just we complain about players and injuries, and obviously you can tie this massively back to the card game because when a player has a big injury, their card market drops when they're not in front of people's face on TV every single week. We see it. Big injuries cause massive, massive drops in card values. Are they going to get back to the same heights again? X, Y, and Z. Things like this, when you've got players that have played 60 plus games already, then you're not giving them any time off, forcing them to play in a competition that they don't care about. You've got Bellingham coming out today saying the pitches are destroying their knees because they're not prepped, they're not surfaced. They're designed for people using 2-inch cleats on the bottom of American football shoes. It's a bit of a messy situation. Like I said, in concept, I love the idea. I absolutely love the idea of Bayern Munich versus Al Hilal. In concept, that's cool. But give it to me as a preseason game because that's all this feels like. It just feels like an advanced
Mm.
preseason. You know, it's a bit. Do you know what it is? It's the Nations League. It's them desperately trying to make something, and we just don't care. I only found out recently we're not even in the top thing of the Nations League. Apparently, we got relegated.
Mm.
Okay, cool, right. Just don't care. Like, unless it's tournament football, I don't care about England. And this is pre-season. I'm not going to watch Man United's pre-seasons. I don't care. Like, I'll switch on when it
No.
comes to the first game week of the season. Do you know what I mean?
And even like, how did people qualify for it and all that? Make European competitions like the Cup Winners' Cup was for teams who won the domestic trophy. Like this is how things used to be. The Champions League should be for the champions like, of every league. It shouldn't be down to fifth or whatever it goes to now and
Oh,
stuff like that. It's just everything gets so
9
watered
English
down.
clubs in Europe.
Yeah, it gets so watered down and it just becomes nowhere near as special as it used to be. And I think these people are so far gone and so far removed from what a football fan actually wants football to be that any new tournament they create is never going to hit them, the sweet spot because I just don't think they are in tune with what football fans, are all about and what football fans want to see. So, yeah,
But
it's one of
there
them
is a
things.
benefit.
Yeah, and let's be honest, it's there to try and give a financial boost to clubs who can't play, or maybe this was probably created before Man City showed everyone the blueprint, and Chelsea, who are now
Yeah,
doing the same thing of how to get around PSR and financial fair play by selling your women's team because a future potential value of it could be 200 million to your rich oil baron owners. And, I don't think they knew that that was going to happen. I think they felt like it was going to be a lot more difficult to play the game. And this was a way to give those mega teams a cash injection and a way around financial fair play. It was almost like well, it was like the Super League that they weren't allowed. That's
See
what
where I
it
was going to
was.
go with it.
So,
Yeah.
well, we talked about that longer than I thought we was going to, but it just shows you that these things do have standing on everything that goes on. Go on,
There is one big point though.
go.
Because of the amount of English teams in Europe, we are now going to get Inception Will Hughes cards, and that's that's game changing. Mateta on an Inception card. Now we're talking. All right.
But will Mateta be on an Inception card?
All right. Why'd you do me like that?
Well, we all know where he's been, you know, supposed to be playing his football next season, and he certainly
Let's
won't be
just do the
playing in
next.
Europe if he makes a move to that team.
Let's just do the next topic, Frankie.
Let's go on to one of your favourite topics: licensed versus
Oh,
unlicensed, Leaf versus Panini and Tops, Jersey Fusion versus Panini and Tops, anything other than Panini or Tops, really. Um, I've always had my feelings on this, and I have been the owner of Leaf cards, and I've got Leaf soccer cards because George Earthy, the only cards that were available with his autograph on it were Leaf cards. So that was perfect as my potential future West Ham superstar, the guy that I picked out very early on in his career. Um, that was the only way that I could have a card with his signature on it. So it fits that bill perfectly. Um, Leaf also for non-football related cards. Boxing, I think they're excellent for. I think that's where you can go and get your boxing fix. Would I go and pay to open a Leaf product? That's where it starts to change for me. And I do regularly rip cases of Topps product and Panini product. I would I don't think I've ever ripped a Leaf product. Um, I don't think I've ever bought a box of Leaf cards. I don't think I've bought into a break with Leaf cards. Um, it's just not for me in that context. I'd rather buy it on the aftermarket. If I'm going to buy it, I'll buy what I want from it. Whereas Topps and Panini, I'm happy to buy many. But my standing on licensed versus unlicensed has always been about supply and demand. And if you're looking, and I always put it into context. So if you want to buy a Cristiano Ronaldo auto and you're going to pay top dollar because it's Panini or Tops, that's great because there are so many buyers for that card. If you ever want to sell it, trade it, sell it and move on to something bigger or whatever it may be. If you can't afford to spend over £1,000 on an autograph of Ronaldo, Messi, whatever it may be, of the top players, then Leaf fills a gap. It makes it more accessible to own the autographs of those players. The only thing that you have is when you come to sell it, there's not as many collectors for it. So it's a bit harder to get your cash out of that investment or collectible or however you want to see it. Now, if there are people who will buy that Leaf auto or whatever auto it may be, and they're happy to sit on it and they'll never ever have to sell it ever again because if they want to make another next grail purchase or they want to do whatever, they can afford to, no problem. And that's the difference. If you're somebody who may need to sell the card in the future, I always recommend putting a bit more money in because it's much easier to get your money back out. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? It's saying, well, you don't necessarily have the funds to spend on the expensive one, but I'm actually saying that I think your better option is a bit like, do you want to buy, you like a Rolex, but someone tells you to go and buy the Tudor. But once you've bought the Tudor, you then don't get to the Rolex. You would have been better off saving for an extra year and buying your Rolex because that's the thing you actually wanted. So I don't know. I always feel like if I've ever owned, so even now I've got the George Earthy autographs, Leaf cards. The second he's printed on Panini or Tops, I want it. And I'll prefer it and I'll love it more than the Leaf ones. So what I'm saying is it never quite scratches the itch completely. It never quite gets it out of your system for me when you own an unlicensed whatever. But let's be honest, we've seen recently Topps products in many forms unlicensed, like the last Euros that they bought out when England and stuff like that not being licensed, and Panini in the past go back to some of the old Wayne Rooney, Frank Lampard cards that were unlicensed back in, what was that set? Was that 2016, 2017?
It must be, yeah.
Yeah, so and they are still well sought after now and still respected. So I think it's each to their own, as it always is with this hobby. We've just touched upon that if you like it, buy it. I think that's that's the good old saying.
Yes.
But we can only give our own experiences with it, and mine is that I just still prefer on a personal item that I'm purchasing. If it's soccer, I will always heavily steer towards Panini and Tops. Over to you, my man.
Right. This is my bread and butter. This is the thing where I'm one of those where I try and bridge the gap because I am a massive believer in it, especially as a brand, Leaf. There are other unlicensed products which I'm not as passionate about, and I know one that you absolutely hate is Futera. Not a
I
fan of
didn't even want to
Futera
bring
at
didn't
all.
even want to bring him into this, Rich, to be honest.
I
But
do apologise, mate. We'll push them out. But there's other ones that are there. Yeah, other brands are available. But one of the big ones for me is I'm a massive fan of Leaf products. Now, I think the one thing I always say to people is, if this was a licensed product, how much would it cost? And I think a great example of one of the ones we've got at the moment is um, the 2024 Leaf Signature Series. 4 autographs per box, all one of ones. Could you imagine how much Topps or Panini
yeah,
would
it'd be
charge for a
frightening.
product like that?
It'd be absolutely frightening.
It's a five-figure box. It genuinely is. If you think that they are putting, jumbo boxes are up at what, £500 for 3 autos. One of them's going to be a base. One of them's going to be to 399, and you might get one to less than 100, and it's already crazy money. I just think it's wicked. And we opened one of those boxes, and in one box we got a one of one Conor McGregor auto, and in the same pack we got a one of one Cole Palmer auto. It's wicked. That's just so cool. Now, one thing was, yeah, but you can't sell them for much. Yeah, but you don't buy them for much. And
Yeah.
that's the counterpoint that I think people need to have. It needs to have its own ecosystem. When you start comparing them up and down, you're always going to have conflictions. Because yes, these cars sell for more. Yeah, but you spent a lot more to get them. Yeah,
A
so
lot
it,
more.
it's a lot more to get them, and that's one of the biggest points that I always try and think, to make. One of our biggest selling products always is the Leaf Ultimate Soccer. You get 7 cards per box, 6 autographs numbered to 20 or less, and patches. Now, one of the massive things for me, and it's going to touch onto a subject we will move into and we'll come back to it, but every single Leaf patch match worn.
Mm.
That's huge. There's other than major brands, they won't offer you that. And this is where I think they just do things right. They I think they touch on the multi-sport very well. We see cards that simply don't exist. You've touched on it fantastically. Boxing's a great example. We've got Mike Tyson autos readily available. You can get Tommy Fury and Tyson Fury dual autos. One of my favorite ones I saw recently was a Floyd Mayweather and Oscar De La Hoya dual auto. That is, if you're into your boxing, that is massive. We were just talking about it. Conor McGregor, you know, football autos have always got the big names in every single set. And that's the thing that I like is they don't spend the money on the licensing. What they do is they spend the money on the signer. And that's massive. Every NFL set will have Patrick Mahomes on it. You know, Tops can't say that. He signed an exclusive deal with Panini now. So it's all well and good that Tops have got the licensing for the NFL coming up, but they're not going to have any Mahomes autos in it. Leaf still will. And then all of a sudden it brings into that conversation. Well, okay, Panini have If they've signed Mahomes, they're going to make football sets still, NFL sets. So what's the difference between that Panini unlicensed NFL set and a Leaf unlicensed one? Because they both have a Patrick Mahomes auto on it. But let's be honest, he probably signed those autos on the same day. They may even have come from the same sticker sheet. Because at the end of the day, your licensed Cristiano Ronaldo auto is a signed clear sticker, which he sat there and just scribbled away on with no care in the world. That's all. It's the exact same thing stuck on a lead card as it is. The player's interaction with that card is the same. All it is a badge, you know. And we were talking about this whole the great thing with licensing. I'm going to use this one as a phenomenal example. The big chases, the Victor Wembanyama rookie autographs from Tops. You know, good mate of mine, you know, has got this in a PSA 10. We pulled this card on stream, you know, and Raymond was over the moon. He sent it off to PSA, come back 10. Fantastic. It's unlicensed. The big rookie auto chase is an unlicensed card, but it's Tops. You know, and you've used a perfect example. The Euro sets, some teams licensed, some are not, but people will still go crazy because it's got the word Tops written on it. And that's where I just think we need to close that gap down. It's a little bit narrow-minded. You know, one of my favourite things that's happened to this hobby is Dakar. I think Dakar have come in. They're producing beautiful cards, truly beautiful. They're giving us match-worn patches, on-card autos, sticker autos, and they're licensed. And I'm watching these die-hard Panini Tops people squirm. Because when I now say to them and say, why wouldn't you buy Dakar? They don't have an argument. The unlicensed
Mm.
argument doesn't exist now. And I'm actually thinking, I think it's ignorance more than anything else. And I, I think in time to come, people are going to realize that maybe they've been a bit disrespectful towards some of these Leaf products. And I think Leaf card values are going to go up. You know, I think I see that coming in the future. It's something I find amazing. I've always tried to use a really good example of if someone's wanting to understand licensing and unlicensing and how the market works, I use the example of cat cars. When you're buying a car, you can buy a category car, yeah, cat B, cat S, whatever it is. You can get the exact same thing for an awful lot less, but you're going to struggle to sell it again because there's less people that want it. And it's kind of the example you used. I try and use that
Mm.
idea of the category cars. You know, you can buy the same car, the same reg, the same mileage, but you're going to pay a lot less for it because it's a category. When it comes to selling it, you need to find someone else that doesn't mind owning a cat car. And that's the comparison that I've always used. It's the analogy, if you will. But
Yeah,
I
it's a
I
good
think
one.
I think it's probably, yeah, it's probably a fair one. And you know, I believe in in Leaf and the other unlicensed products. I think they're fantastic because it allows people who necessarily can't afford the bid stuff to put a messy autograph on their shelf. They can pay 300 quid and get a messy to 5 auto on their shelf. That's phenomenal. At the end of the day, the card's still going to look good. It's going to have a good design on it, and it's going to have that same interaction with Messi than that £2,000 Panini product has. He signed a sticker. Well, maybe he's signed a sticker. Someone signed a sticker.
Yeah, do you know where I like Leaf? And I feel like because they can't have the club badges, they can't have the sponsors, they can't have all this stuff because of the licensing issue. I just wish they would go and find the best, sharpest, most interesting photography. Like if you've got to take the stuff off and plain because it does. I feel like sometimes the cards feel plain because the jerseys are plain. It almost makes the card feel plain. And that's the best way that I can describe it. It feels less
Yeah.
interesting. I wish they'd go out and get the sharpest, the best imagery when using actual photographers of the players that they're using. Where I think Leaf comes into its own a little bit is the art cards. I quite like I can't remember what they were actually called. You might remember the name, but there was a Pele one and there was another one, and it was almost like a manga anime kind of image. But they've actually got quite a lot of respect in the hobby, and the value of them is quite strong. Also, like the Mike Tyson ones. I don't love when they use his actual image, but I really like the ones where they use his old cartoon images from the old games and the retro stuff and all bits like that. I think that's where they really come into their own. And I'd be very happy. or happier to have art with the autograph as opposed to, and that's my chase. That's what I want to own, that game cover of the retro Mike Tyson boxing game with the Mike Tyson signature on it. I think that would be unbelievable. So yeah, for me, I think if you're going to have the licensing taken out and you're going to, have that issue, I just think you really should put that extra effort into sourcing the best photography, the best images you can find. And I find them a little bit lazy with it now and then. Look, Tops are just as guilty for it. We've seen that new Alex Ferguson marks of excellence, all the unbelievable images you could choose of Fergie, and they go and choose that one. It don't make any sense. The one where he's jumping on the pitch where United win the league and all stuff like. There's so many iconic images they could have used of the man, and they used the most plain, boring, dull image that you could ever wish to use of him. So look, they're all guilty of it, but I think you are more. There's more emphasis and there's more of I think, a punishment for you when you're unlicensed for not putting that extra effort in to get those images bang on, because that's really what you've got to play upon if you haven't got the licensed element of it. But you are right; it's all relative. Like you say, what you pay for is what you get, and all those sorts of things. So, I hope that Leaf make more strides towards becoming more respected. I think they certainly deserve more respect than they get. And I'd really like to see it. I'm on the fence because, like we say, it's in the world that we're in. I don't think we've ever put a Leaf product into a stacked and packed product, and that isn't because of my issue with Leaf or that I don't respect it. It's the fear that whoever pulls it won't respect it. So, but there are exceptions to that. So, like I said, those manga anime type cards, the ones that the collectors really do love, then those Leaf ones can go in. So we have had exceptions to that rule, and we've had some exceptions to that. It's the same with, we say that we don't have players who, like for example, Leaf Ronaldo autographs, they can go in stacked and packed products. If it's a Messi auto, totally different story because they're the cream of the crop of collector stuff. But would I go and put my Georgia Earthy autograph in a stacked and packed product as a West Ham hit? Probably not. So that's the difference. Do you know what I mean? So that's where we find it a little bit difficult. And it is just because you just don't know how it's going to be received. And that always makes me nervous when I look at purchasing a Leaf card. Um, is it going to stand the test of time? Is it always going to be respected? Are there always going to be buyers for it? Just makes me nervous. And that's not because of my feelings towards it, it's because of everyone else's. And that shouldn't be the case, should it? It should be, again, as we've said so many times, buy what you like and you can't really go wrong. So, I mean, and it's where does the value come from? What is the value? Take the sticker off a Leaf autograph and a Panini impeccable Cristiano Ronaldo. So you've got a Ronaldo impeccable auto, a Leaf Ronaldo auto. Take the stickers off, the bit of cardboard's worth the same amount of money, really. The tangible asset is worth the same, about 50p's worth of cardboard, probably not even that. But the sticker on it is where the value comes from. And like you said, if the stickers are the same, then that's all that should matter. You're buying that piece of cardboard to own the autograph of that player. And it's really interesting because this is where the card world has broken away from the typical memorabilia within sports. There are kind of going rates for players' autographs, whether it be on a football shirt, poster, whatever it may be, unless the items match worn, match used. The actual autograph is where the value is. And if you go in to get stuff valued and whatever, someone will look at it. And if you took in a football, but just a plain any old football with Cristiano Ronaldo's autograph on it, and you took a shirt in, there'd be a going rate for Cristiano Ronaldo's autograph. And they'll turn around and say it's worth 500 quid, 600 quid, 700 quid, whatever it is. But the sports card world's transcended that because of the value of the collector of certain sets, whether it be impeccable, flawless, and that's what changed it. So it's really, really interesting, and it does worry me a little bit in the long term as to whether this breakout of value can maintain itself. And that's why I'm nervous of owning a Leaf autograph versus a Panini one, because I just feel that because of the amount of collectors in the world, because of their history, because of their background, because of everything that supports that brand, I just feel that any asset owned that's Panini has more chance of holding that value. And let's be honest, it's already dipped, because Cristiano Ronaldo, you couldn't buy his autograph on a Panini card for less than £1,000 not so long ago. Couldn't buy one. Now you can go and get one for 800 quid, no problem. So we've already seen it dip under that £1,000 mark. And I just worry about in the long term how much that can still fluctuate and where that can go. And if you were saying to me right now as a collector, oh, I really want to own Ronaldo's autograph, what card do I go and buy? I would be advising any Panini card under £1,000, not the Leaf card at £500-600. It's just where I am.
Oh, mate, I think it makes absolute sense. I think it's a very, very good point. Like I said, I think there's definitely surefire things, and you're right. It's all about the liquidity on the afters. Um, but again, it's just, if you buy what you like, if you like the look of that card, go for it. The best example I've always going to have is I picked this as one of my first major PC purchases. The Cristiano Ronaldo Garnacho 1 of 1 dual autograph. I bought that before Garnacho had even made his professional debut for the team.
Did you?
That's exactly what you were like saying. Earthy, you'd never been anywhere near another set, but you'd have seen him as a youngster, and I did the same. I bought that literally right after the under-18s FA Cup final, which he scored the winning goal in.
Mm.
This young kid that I was watching in the youth, and all of a sudden it's quite publicly known. It big come out that Ronaldo's his hero. Bang, there's a card of them on them. I picked that up for tuppence compared to the numbers I'd been offered for it when that Garnacho peak hype came in. The
Mm.
numbers I was getting offered on that were crazy. But that was my first big PC purchase, and it's never going to leave me. Honestly, the guy could probably sign for City or Liverpool, I'd still keep it.
And that's nice.
Um,
And there's not enough of that. We've been through it before. There's not enough people who purchase things and don't care about the ups and downs of the money. They just want it in their collection forever, and just to sit on it and enjoy the memory, the moment, what it means to the person. Yeah, I mean, that's like you say, that started your journey of that type of purchase. So look, we've said it before. It's each to their own, and that's the most important thing. And there'll be people out there who collect only Leaf, don't touch Panini and
yeah,
tops.
of course.
So and you've got to respect that. You have to respect that. And yeah, I mean, it then comes on to our final point of this podcast, which is unassociated versus worn. Now, I don't want to get too much involved because I think actually it's very similar to what we've just been through. Licensed, unlicensed, unassociated, match worn. It is just again that value of, well, whereas the value comes from autos, here something being match worn should, in theory, hold more value. However, again, I've always been, if somebody rocked up to you with a square section of a shirt and said, "Yeah, Rich, I've got a 1 inch square bit of cloth that was worn by Garnacho in that under 18s cup final. Do you want to buy this little bit of his shirt?" Just doesn't seem that appealing. You stick it in a card, and all of a sudden, and I still struggle because someone who's had a background in sports memorabilia, the fact that you want to go and buy match worn Pele shirts and chop them into squares, it actually makes my stomach crawl a little bit. That is a moment of history. It's something that should be treasured and cherished forever. Yet you want to chop it all up and stick it into sports cards. I struggle with it a little bit. Unassociated, look, does it make it look nice? Is it a bit of intrigue? Is it interesting? Yeah, I think it's quite cool. I still don't get why unassociated can't be. Well, I guess I do. And this is a lot of people's argument, and I'd love to get your take on this. When COVID come around and we saw a massive move to more unassociated than we'd ever seen. Because people who's new to the hobby might not know this, but prior to COVID, most things were match worn. That's how it was.
All of
If
them,
they was
yeah.
putting a patch in a card, it was match worn. That's how it was. Yeah, there was some exceptions to that, but the majority in most sets were match worn. So COVID comes along. There's less opportunity to own match worn pieces of material. So everyone argues if you're going to do unassociated, give us the best bits of the shirt. Give us the most interesting patterns. Give us the badges. Give us the laundry tags. Give us something that's bloody cool. Don't give us napkin patches. Yet we still see napkin patches in unassociated cards. Why? I don't understand. I guess, and I'm only thinking about it now while we're talking it through, is because they want to save those interesting things for the lower numbered cards. If they was putting, to 199 patches and they're cutting out a picture of the crest, the West Ham badge, they're getting the hammers, they're getting whatever, or the start of the name, whatever it may be, or the player's number, and they shove it in all the 199s. Well, what do you do when you get to the tens? What do you do when you get to the fives? What do you do when you get to the 101s? The opportunity for that cool thing is gone. Now, I don't understand sometimes when you even see those low numbered stuff with not very interesting patches, but that's the only reason I can give.
I mean, it was crazy. Quite recently, I think we spoke about it at the time. I was looking at buying a select one of one Lionel Messi, one of one Lionel Messi patch. Beautiful. Into it, it's unassociated. You look at the patch, it's half white, half blue. Hey, it's a dual color patch. This is a one of one Lionel Messi. That is up there, the best non-auto card in the product. I don't even have I want the star above the crest. I want a piece of the floral element of the badge. I want something. But yeah, you get napkins, and I think you're absolutely right. I think the everything 50 and lower, you're getting a napkin. Up to the tens, you're going to get a dual color. You might get one of the Adidas stripes. You might get one of the shirt stripes. You might get a bit of the number or the name from the back. And then you start getting the sponsors and the badges. And it's a bit of a shame. And I think you're right. If it's unassociated and you're just walking into JD and buying it off a hanger and chopping it up, there's no reason that they all shouldn't look good. They should at least all be dual color. They should be at least have something about them. But I just think it's a shame. I'd almost rather not just give us a different insert. It's almost like patch unassociated cards. Just give us a different insert because match worn, yes, you have the element of history, but then again, it feels dirty because you made a great point. You get a match worn Maradona shirt. I'm like, how many of those are left? I don't want
Yeah,
people
but you've
going
hit
into
the nail on the head,
auctions
mate.
and
I've
uh,
never thought of this before. You're absolutely right. I'm convinced of this now. You've absolutely spot on. They should get rid of all non-associated patch cards and see what market happens to patches all of a sudden. It would go through the roof. If everything become only match worn and those inserts became super, super rare within products, limit what goes in, a bit like the marks of excellence autographs. All of a sudden you will see the value skyrocket because people won't see them as often. There's never that debate. How many? You're a breaker. What's the first thing you do when you pull a patch? Turn it round. That's what you do, don't you?
unfortunately,
You get it, you turn it round. And how many times as a breaker do you get it? Do you turn it round and then think, well, I've got to turn it back round quite quickly because I don't want to make a big deal of the fact it's unassociated and basically worthless. We all feel it. We all have those feelings, don't we? So how it is. Get rid of non-associated patches.
Mhm.
Only put match-worn patches in and see the reaction every time someone pulls one. It will reignite, I think, patch cards within the hobby.
I think you're right. And the thing is like, yeah, you only then need 25 from that shirt. And now all of a sudden, every patch can be beautiful. Every
Yeah.
patch can have something about it. Okay, you've then got a lot of shirt left over, which is wastage. Stick him in match attacks. Stick him in something like that, where it's a cheap, it's still match worn. That's fantastic. What a beautiful chase for a lesser set. But what you're doing is you're giving a premium product, premium item, rather, and it could just be off anything, and that's what I don't like. It really upsets me when you see that kind of thing, and it leads into a point which me and you discussed the other day: unassociated patches. Now, one of the biggest things we've seen is a growing problem. Problem maybe is the term to use. You don't know, and some people have spoken about it. Patch swapping. Okay, we know it's a thing. We've seen evidence of it. I uploaded a video onto my TikTok a little while ago talking about a Cristiano Ronaldo card that was purchased for about 80, I think it was $80. They
Yeah.
then swapped the patch on it, re-auctioned it, quadrupled their money because it went from having a napkin patch to a bit of a badge, and all of a sudden that card looks the nuts. Back to what we were just saying, that's what we want to be seeing. But where does the line now get drawn with now where we're talking about patch swapping? Because if it's an unassociated patch, part of you wants to say, what's the problem with it? Because what you're putting in that card is actually just as attentive to the rest of that card as what was in there originally. It's absolutely
Mm.
nothing. You can put whatever you want in, especially if it's for a personal collection. If you want a personal collection card, put whatever patch you want in there and look the nuts. Match worn, you can't do that. But it's a big patch swapping is a big problem. I don't agree with it, but I then also struggle to have an argument with people that do it when we have unassociated patches anyway, because their argument will be, but that's got nothing to do with them anyway. It's a really
Mm.
tricky minefield. I mean, I'd love to know where you sit on patch swapping because I think it's a crazy minefield of a topic, and I think it is
Yeah.
tricky wherever you sit on it.
I think it's probably been going on a lot longer than we anticipate. I think it's probably been
Yeah.
around for a while. To me, it becomes really glaringly obvious when you look at a, like you say, to 50 or higher numbered, and it's got this unbelievable patch in it. Well, the companies just don't do it. They don't do it. So it just don't happen. So you look at it and you just think, no, there's no way. And maybe okay, you can't be 100% sure, but I would just steer clear. Naturally, I would just go, move myself away from it. I don't think. I think it was definitely more of an American thing than a UK thing, just because once again, I don't think we've necessarily valued the interesting patch as much as I remember before. You're comping a card and you've got a to 20, whatever it may be, and someone's got, like you say, a bit of the number on the back, but your number to 20's got a bit of the badge. There's no question that my one looks better than that comp, but they want to pay the same. But it's not the same. And someone who was very good at holding to that was Alex Warner, London City Cards. If he had a good patch around him, he'd never let it go cheap. Never. Just wouldn't do it. And yeah, I respected him for it, mate, massively. But like you say, the answer to all of this is only match worn patches, a Beckett style authentication system where you can either use the NFC reader on your phone, or you can scan a barcode or whatever it may be. There just needs to be almost a tap and ping authentication system, and all of a sudden, all of this stuff goes away. So, there is a
Right. And
responsibility
on
from the manufacturers again. It boils down to that.
I think you're absolutely right, and I'll give them a big shout out here. And I'm not a monstrous fan of their products. I like them, I'm not, but Diffusion do that spot on. Okay,
Yeah.
their card, they look interesting. It's a patch prick sticked onto a card. It's not, but you turn the card over, you scan the QR code, and there's the COA. There's a front and a rear of the jersey you have. There's the information about the day it was worn. There's the stats for that player on the game that it was worn. And at the bottom of it, there is the COA of its purchase before. Perfect. And it's just a simple QR scan on the back of the card. Absolutely spot on. That's what I want to see. Show me the shirt. Which game was it worn in? And again, I'm sorry, I'm going to mention the F word. Futera do it spot on. You turn over a Futera patch, it will tell you exactly what day and date in what game that patch was worn. That for me is brilliant, because these companies will get away with it. That match worn shirt could have been a 5-minute appearance at Soccer Aid. They will
Yeah.
class that as a match worn jersey. That will 1,000% be classed as a match worn jersey, as a 5-minute Soccer Aid cameo. But when you go on the back and you say, I've got an Eric Cantona one, which was from France versus Germany in 1994 or whenever it was, that's beautiful. I love that. And I think that's just so important. Tell us the game, tell us what it is. And you're absolutely right. Between me and you, we have just saved the patch market.